Welcome back to ADHD Adultish. I am your host, Kim Spangler, and today I am super excited and a little bit starstruck to be joined by Alan P. Brown. Alan is an ADHD productivity coach. He is the creator of the award-winning ADD Crusher virtual coach program for teens and adults, and best-selling author of Zen and the Art of Productivity. Welcome to the podcast, Alan.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm super excited because today we're going to be talking about something that I've talked about a lot, and that is I've talked a lot about building routines and why they matter, why they sometimes suck, and how to make them a little bit more ADHD friendly. And today you're going to be bringing us a little bit of a fresh perspective.
Yeah. I'm going to be talking a little bit more specifically about rituals, which can be part of routines, but all in the same family. Absolutely.
I'm a fan of the word rituals. It sounds more soothing. It sounds less clinical, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
So when you say rituals, what do you mean? We're not talking about, sitting on a bed of nails. Are we going to light some incense?
No, and it's funny too because I like the word rituals too, but I know for a lot of folks it can be like wait a minute, hold on a second. And are you going to make me do? Are you talking about some kind of 45-minute long process that I have to do? No. We're just talking about creating a pause to be fully present so that we can be fully intentional and make better decisions, work with more focus, or just generally choose right action more often. And for especially for the ADHD brain, we need rituals to help us because that we got to cause that pause because we tend to live most of our days on what I call autopilot, right? We just start our days without much thought. We're just doing. We don't kind of look up enough. We keep our nose to the grindstone with our blind eye. I'm just going to do whatever comes in front of me, right? And so we're not present. We're not in the now. And I often think of this book I read many years ago by Dr. Josh Davis called 2 Awesome Hours. And he talks about how our days comprise a series of habitual neural routines. We're getting up in the morning, we're getting dressed, we're commuting to work, or we're going downstairs to the office, we're turning on the computer, we're answering emails, we're grabbing lunch, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem is, as he tells it, that we're jumping from task to task to task without giving any good thought as to what makes most sense to do next. And autopilot, that not being present to what we are or should be doing, has kind of become our default mode, especially those of us with ADHD. And on autopilot, we can't access the conscious resources to make better decisions about what to work on. We're not in control. We're wasting time and energy, and we're adding to whatever overwhelm we already have. So just doing instead of pausing and thinking is a recipe for more trouble.
Yeah. I think it just feels like everything is as fast as you can go today. Everything has to be go, 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 now, more.
Yeah, not
Oh,
helpful. Not that it can be
no,
helpful, but not, yeah, yeah.
absolutely. So you're going to be sharing three rituals that you think are non-negotiable. Did I have that
Correct.
right?
I think they're non-negotiable. I do them, all three of them, all the time, and they are a morning ritual, a work session ritual, and what I call recovery rituals. So
Ooh,
start taking your notes now.
I like it. I'm glad I'm recording this so I can come back and take notes later. Um, so okay, let's start with morning ritual. Tell me about morning ritual.
So again, just sort of to summarize what I was talking about in the opening, we get up in the morning and we go, okay, well, let me check my emails and maybe one of those emails pulls us into some kind of task, and we go off and we do that task, and then we go, oh, and then somebody says, hey, can we do this? Okay, yeah, okay, well, let's do that, and then I get a text over here, and I get busy with that, and so the day just goes on, and at the end of the day, we go, wow, I was really busy all day. I didn't get anything done, right? So that scenario versus, okay, before I even check my emails or the news headlines or whatever, I'm just going to pause and I'm just going to just decide what today's going to be about before I just jump into everything and go in on autopilot. A morning ritual is practiced by every single thought leader, successful entrepreneur, and CEO. And again, I know I don't want you to think that please don't expect me to start doing some series of meditations and mantras and exercises that take 45 minutes to do that I know I'll never actually be able to turn into a habit. Yes, there are many variations of morning rituals, some of which can be really involved. Mine actually has 9 steps, but it only takes 4 minutes. But all you really need to do to have an effective morning, a legitimate effective morning ritual, is pause to decide, all right, what is my day going to be about? Just that. If you only did that, just stop. And before you dive into this, what is my day going to be about? Right? Simple. But 99% of us don't pause to do this. Again, instead, we run out the door on autopilot, we commute to work, et cetera, or we go down to the office or do whatever. And again, at the end of your day, you're like, wow, I was busy. I don't know what I got done. But let me just get one more level of depth, because I like to keep rituals. Rituals are simple for me. You keep them simple so that you can do them without any sweat. So here's how the most basic morning ritual is: just that pause. You just pause and go, okay, what's going on today? But I'm going to go one level deeper. And the morning ritual is really just 3 questions. So the first question is, again, what's going on today? What appointments do I have? Right? Okay, well, I got to be there at 3 o'clock and I got this dinner tonight. And then we set little alarms, right, to go off 20 minutes or whatever before each one of those things. So now I'm not likely to forget things or be late for things, or less likely, right? So like, well, what's going on today? Where do I have to show up? The second question is, okay, with that being my day, where are there some open spaces for me to do one of my, I call them biggies, something that's real important, something I never seem to have time for, or I never seem motivated to do, right? These are biggies, the things that really move us forward, right? And where's there some space for me to do that? Ideally in my mentally strong time, ideally in my mentally strongest time. For most people, it's in the morning, but for some, it's the afternoon. For some, it's in the evening. For a handful, it's up in, late at night. But the third question is, okay, great. Here's some space where I can act in my mentally strong time, where I can sort of block that off and do something. And then the third question is just, what's the one thing I can work on that will really move me forward? That's it, right? And when you just start to practice that, even let's just say 3 times out of 7 a week, you're going to have more of your biggies, your difficult things that really move you forward, getting attended to, fewer surprises. You're not being late as much. You're being better prepared for meetings and calls and other such things. And you're going to also not be overscheduling. And that's just a few of the benefits of a consistent morning ritual, or shorthand is a pause and plan, if you prefer that language. I'm just going to pause and take a look at my day.
That sounds very simple, but short, like short but effective. I can imagine you can do that in just a few minutes.
Yes, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why I like to keep things simple. I just want to say one thing, and that some of our audience might be thinking about, which is, yeah, I know I've tried to incorporate some regular thing in my day, or whatever, but I do it for 3 days and then I forget it. And then I do it for 2 and then I forget it. And I get that. I get that. Maybe it was you trying to use a planner every day or something like that. But here's the thing. What you want to do is, let's say that you got a little excited about having a morning ritual and having some of the benefits of a morning ritual. What you want to do is identify something that you already do every morning, right? Without fail. So let's just say it could be brushing your teeth. Let's just say, though, that you're a coffee person and you make a pot of coffee every morning. If you were to take a sticky and write pause and plan on that sticky, and then go stick it on your coffee maker, and in the morning, when you come to that coffee maker, you see that sticky, pause and plan. That's a simple reminder that works every day, that when your coffee is brewing, I'm just going to sit down and go, okay, what's going on today? Where's there some open space? And what's one thing I can work on? If you do that just with that silly little sticky, you can actually have a shot at having a morning ritual that at some point you don't even need to think about. Because I don't need to think about my morning ritual. I just launch into it first thing in the morning. But I did need to build the habit on. So I wanted to share that before we get to the next ritual.
I love it. And I love that you used coffee as an example, because after re-listening to my own episodes and when I'm editing, I've noticed that coffee seems to be my favorite example to use in so many situations. So let's talk about work session ritual. What is that?
Ah, the work session ritual. So you've decided on that one biggie you're going to work on, right? This is probably a tough thing. You might have been putting it off for a while, or maybe it's not such a tough thing, but it's something you really know you got to do today, and today's the day to work on. So let's look at scenario A. You go, and let's say it's a tough thing. You go, okay, scenario A is all right. Well, I decided I'm going to work on. Okay, I'm going to work on the thing, and you open your computer or whatever, and you'll start working on it or whatever. And then what's going to happen is your phone's going to buzz, or you're going to remember something, or you're going to get an idea for something, and you're going to get distracted. You're going to get pulled away, right? Could be an external distraction. It could be an internal distraction. Oh, you know what? Let me go research those the dwarf goats. I love dwarf. Let me go find because I remember I want to get a dwarf goat. Maybe I can have one in the apartment. I don't know. Whatever that is, you know what I'm talking about, right? So that's
Yeah.
scenario A, right? And scenario B is you make a big deal of this work session. You call it, I'm doing now a work session, and you make a big deal of it. What do I mean? So the first thing, I'm going to grab my little pack of stickies here. Forgive me, I should have pulled this out before. But this is something that I do 3 or 4 times a day. I got sticky pads everywhere, right? I do not have a gazillion reminder stickies everywhere because that doesn't help. So I use them very strategically and selectively. But let's say that I've identified the one thing I'm going to work on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by, well, let me I just mess that one up. Get out of here. You're no good. All right. I'm going to start by making a new to-do list. So let's say, my to-do list, I don't really have to-do lists anymore. This is a checklist that I use when I'm doing my group coaching for my membership. So let's just say and let's say that I've identified, okay, this thing I'm going to work on, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and put it away, because when we have our to-do list, or for that matter, a pile of papers in our line of sight, it will steal energy from what we're trying to do. It's something called the Zeigarnik effect. I won't go into it. But what I'm going to do is start a new to-do list with nothing on it, right? New to-do list. And then I'm going to write the one thing, I'm just going to scribble one thing here. The one thing I'm going to work on, that goes here. And I'm going to take this sticky, I'm going to put it right over here, or I can put it up here, I can put it up here, just somewhere where it'll be visible in my peripheral vision, all right? Okay, so that's really step one in your work session ritual. See, you can see how we're making a bigger deal of this thing, right?
Yeah.
This is a big deal. And I do this 3, 4 times a day, whether it's a really, really big thing or just a medium thing, or sometimes even I just do this and I start, okay. Now I'm also going to make an assertive declaration. That's when we say something out loud. We say, that's what I'm doing now. That thing is what I'm doing now. Or better yet, Alan, that is what Alan is doing now. You use the third person for more effective. All right. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to re-up my hydration. This is brain food. Water is brain food. I've always got a bottle of this around, and I will guzzle about half of this before I start on a work session. I will make sure that my hot beverage of choice is topped off or whatever. I will make sure that there was 20 grams or so of protein in my tummy. So before we started this interview, I put some protein in my tummy, good, healthy protein in my tummy, because I don't want to be working for 10 minutes and then go, oh, you know what? I need to get something. And then I got to prepare a meal, and then I got blah, blah, blah. And now my work session is shot, right? And then the last thing I'll do, with the exception of, possibly, making sure you got your meds or whatever, is set a timer. Hey, Siri, set a timer for 90 minutes. Hey, Siri, are you there? Yeah, set a timer for 90 minutes. Okay. You're not, I set her to speak with an Irish accent. And when she doesn't say anything, I get, where's the Irish? All right. Okay. So anyway, let me just recap what I've done. All right. I've made a big deal of this work session, right? I've written down on a new to-do list what I'm going to work on. I've made a declaration. That's what I'm doing, man. That's what I'm doing. Let's do it. And then I make sure I've got hydration. I got protein in here. I got my coffee or tea or whatever that is. And then I've set a timer. Now, why does this help us from being distracted? All of this, first of all, by making a big deal of it is, sorry, is helping to build a little sort of a force field around the task. We are less likely now to go, oh, you know what? Let me just check this, or oh, this thing's vibrating. Let me do that, or oh yeah, I meant to go do the blah blah blah, because we've made a more serious declaration and some actions around it. We've also got hydration, protein. Maybe we've made a bathroom stop, so we don't need to get up in 15 minutes. And we set a timer, which provides another sort of, sort of encasing over it, because it's saying that until that thing goes off, we're going to try to stay engaged in this task. That is a work session ritual. All right. So
I
protein,
love it.
hydration, your coffee, your meds, do what you're doing now with the assertive declaration. Do that every time you're working on something big. Again, I do this 3-4 times a day, and I get a lot done, even though I've got crazy ADHD.
I like that. I think the protein and the water, especially when you said both of those, I went, oh, I mean, of course. And I've mentioned it many times before, and I know protein is so good for helping
Yep.
us get the focus in. And just I don't think it's ever occurred to me before to make that part of my sitting down to work ritual, but it makes a lot of sense because you're eliminating the things that because I can see it like, oh, you sit down, you're 10 minutes. Oh, I'm thirsty. I'll go get some water. This is when you remember to
Exactly.
get water, right?
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
on the way there, you see, oh, I forgot to put that thing away. Let me go put that thing away. And
You
so
think about it also, just further to the making a big deal of it, is you are getting the protein before you sit down in order to be able to focus on this thing. You are getting the hydration and guzzling that in order to focus on this thing. You have stopped in the bathroom in order to focus on this thing. And you have gotten your coffee. And then when you sit down, and hopefully it's a clear space, that's another issue if it's not, but we sat down and we've got our water and our coffee and our timer going. All these things are screaming at us, hey, we built this little ritual here around this one task. So again, do you think that you'd be more likely to stay engaged in this task, or at least be less vulnerable to distractions, than if I just said, oh, la-di-da, I guess I'll work on that thing, da-da-da, or, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do it. I guess I'll work on that thing. Those two scenarios are not lending themselves to stay in focus. In fact, they are inviting us to be pulled away by our outlaw brain and saying, hey, this sucks. Let's not do this. Let's do this over here, versus a work session ritual.
I agree. I like the sticky with the one thing on it because if you start to get distracted and you've got the sticky there with just the one thing, it's hard to not remember what you need to pull back to.
Yeah. And again, I'm a big fan of just a clean working space. I did a presentation to the International Conference on ADHD a few years ago, and I talked exclusively about how clutter, visual clutter, steals energy from our brain. And there's plenty of science to back it up. So when we've got our to-do list over here and we got a bunch of stuff over there and da da da, versus when we just have this one thing and it's brightly colored and we can just see it out of the sort of peripheral vision over here, that's where I usually put it. That is a beautiful place to work from. If everything else is clear and there's just this one thing, again, it's a reminder that this is the only thing there is right now. Yeah.
I like that you can repeat it for as many times as you need to focus on different things throughout the day.
Yeah.
So, and it's
Yep.
not so difficult or so many steps or so complicated that you're just like, oh, I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
So, I think that is helpful because we don't all sit down and do just like one thing for the whole day. So,
Right. Right. And it's not like this is a panacea. It's not like also, oh wow, I'm gonna do that thing that Alan talked about. I'll never get distracted again. No, you will get distracted. Your outlaw brain, which is that part of our brain that wants to, have fun, not do anything uncomfortable, etc. It's going to be taunting you. It's going to be saying, hey, let's go do this sucks, this is hard, etc. But all I'm saying is you do this work session ritual consistently, and you will be less and less likely to get pulled off into those miscellaneous BS things that, again, at the end of the day, you're kicking yourself because you ended up reorganizing your spice rack instead of working on that difficult thing.
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. We talked about the morning ritual, the work session ritual, and
Mhm.
number three is the recovery ritual. I am real
Recovery
interested to hear
ritual.
about this.
Yeah. So we are, well, I'll give you the two scenarios again, right? So scenario one is, we're working on this one thing, and we hit a wall, and we go, oh yeah, okay, all right, it's pretty good. 45 minutes. I really worked on that thing. Let me just check this thing. I'm just going to check real quick, check some headlines and just check, just take a look at it. I'll just do a few swipes on my TikTok or whatever. Not the big, that's all. Don't worry, I'll come back. I'm taking a break. That's the typical scenario. Or we go off and we start doing some other task or that we remember that we needed to do, thinking, oh, I'll come back to the big thing. And then we just don't come back. That's scenario A. But what's happening is we are making the mistake of engaging in self-comfort. This is comforting, rather than self-care. And recovery is what we should be doing, not burning more energy. When we get up and we go do some miscellaneous thing or we go into our emails, oh my God, that's not recovery. That's not restful. That is burning lots of energy. I give you lots of science on the energy drain that is our email inbox, right? So whenever we pick this thing up to do something miscellaneous, even just respond to a text or whatever, we are burning energy that could have been saved for the remainder of the work session ritual of the work session, right? So instead, what we want to do is we want to do something that is a recovery, something that is restorative. So a few quick examples. First of all, always try to move. Just get up and move. You can get up and stretch a little bit. You can get up and walk out to the backyard, go up a flight of stairs, come back down. Sounds silly, but what you're doing is you're driving freshly oxygenated blood back up to your brain after having sat for a while. That's a good thing. And another one is sometimes I have a beautiful community garden across the street. And I'll just go over there and just pick like 5 weeds, put them in my garbage can next to the house, and I'll come back inside, wash my hands, and sit back down. It's restorative. There's a whole bunch of science about the soil too that some of you may know of. But that beats the hell out of going here and doing some of this malarkey, right? And it's restful. I'm not taxing my brain. I'm not looking at something. Another thing, you could do a power pose for a couple of minutes. Some of you may have heard of these. Just stand, hands on hips, or
Like Superman style.
like Superman. Exactly. So when we
Yep.
do that and we stand tall for 2 minutes, we actually increase some good neurotransmitters. So I'll just put it that way, and other body chemicals. Another one is pick up and move to a different location. I call it venue change. So I might do that if I'm really kind of not feeling it so much. I might just pack up and go out to my backyard where I have a studio back there, and I'll set up camp there. I'll do the whole work session ritual again when I settle in there. Another thing is just get up and get a little bit more protein or top off your coffee, but then come back. That movement of just getting up and then coming back gives you a psychological reboot and a physical reboot. So everybody out there, please watch for when we think that opening this thing is going to provide some recovery or rest. It doesn't. And I know it's addictive, and I know it's nobody out there is going to just stop going to their phone when they take a break. I know that's not going to happen. But if you can just start to build awareness around that, you will find yourself. In fact, what I did after I had a 90-minute coaching session, not long before this, and I was pretty wiped out afterward. And what I did is I went to the back room, we call it the Brooklyn flat back there, and it's got some sun coming in. And I just laid down, I set a timer for 10 minutes, and I just laid down and closed my eyes. If I were a naughty boy, which sometimes I am, I might have laid down and gone on Instagram. But then I would have had my brain all engaged in things. I probably would have gone longer than 10 minutes. And then I would have felt like crap when it's time to get up and then come back to get back to work. So that's the power of a recovery ritual. And remember, after you do your recovery ritual, whatever it is, do your work session ritual again. Okay, I got my water, got my coffee, I got my protein. Let me get a little bit more meds in me. All right, set another timer. All right.
I love that. First of all, the movement thing, I'm a big fan of moving to help you get from one thing to another. And I heard this phrase recently that made a lot of sense to me, but I heard someone say you have to spend energy to make energy, and
Mm,
scrolling TikTok or whatever your social media of choice is not does not take any energy and from you. It
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. It doesn't spend any, you don't have to spend energy on it, but it's certainly taking energy from you. Whereas
Yes.
getting up and going the community garden thing, that's
Yeah.
I
Exerting a little
totally jealous.
physical energy will create more energy. And I think part of the reason that that's a powerful truth is because, again, we're driving blood to our brain. We're sort of, and we're getting a reset. When we go here, we're still sitting and we're just okay, yeah, and we're not doing anything physical. Yeah, yeah, I think
And
there's
our
a truth in that.
Yeah, our brains are so busy that if you when you add and I do it, I doom scroll and wish that when I'm done, I wish that I hadn't, and because it's not helping my brain settle down at all.
Yeah,
Whereas, getting up and walking around, going to get a little sunshine, those things do.
you point to another really powerful truth, which is um, this device, whatever you're doing on it, it's keeping our brain going and entertained and engaged. And the thing about a recovery ritual is to not have your brain engaged for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. To actually, yes, you'll be daydreaming, you'll be thinking about this and that, but that's not nearly the effort that you're doing when you're in some narrative and social media, or you're looking at emails and starting to worry about it's a bunch of decisions in your email inbox. That's why the
Ooh,
science tells us it's just awful to be in
yeah.
your inbox. But when we can actually disengage from having our brain constantly engaged, we have a chance for our brain to actually get a little bit quiet and enter what's known as the default mode network. And in that little phase there, your synapses start to crosstalk, and you are more likely to come up with an idea like, oh, I know how I'm going to write that last paragraph now. That's what happens when you get up and walk around. That's what happens when you get in the shower, right? You always have ideas when you're in the shower. There's a
Yep.
reason for that. It's because you're not sitting there doing this and keeping your brain tied to some narrative. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah. You got to give your brain space to do its own work and
Yeah.
not just let it sit back and be have
Dragged around the block. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So um like recovery ritual, I love that. And I love that the work session and recovery kind of go together
Yes.
and you can use
Yes.
them just on a repeat as much as you need to. There's
Agreed.
nothing there that you can't just do multiple times a day. And and so it is a good solution and you can do that for anything. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be, sitting at your desk doing, like I'm writing a blog post. It doesn't have to be that kind of work. If you need to
Yeah.
do your taxes or
Exactly. Or it could be you're working on the big garage project and you get a little bogged down. Go refuel with protein, rehydrate, take a break, take a walk, and then come back and restart. Yeah. Great point. Great
um
point.
okay, so could you just recap for me um or yeah, so morning
Yeah.
ritual, work session, we're just,
Yeah.
just quick points.
And I'm glad that you pointed out that the work session ritual and the recovery ritual work hand in hand. But actually, all three of them really do, because if you begin your day with a morning ritual, again, anchor that morning ritual to something you already do. If you want to take a shot at it, grab that brightly colored sticky and go put it on your coffee maker or your tea kettle or whatever that just says pause and plan or whatever. But when you do your morning ritual, you got a better job of prioritizing the right things and actually working on the right things rather than just getting busy on a bunch of stuff. And when you identify one of those things that you know you need to work on, and ideally you're going to have time in your mentally strongest time to work on it, then do a big work session ritual. Make a big deal about this. Don't just like, well, I'm going to do this, but make a big deal of it. And then when you hit a wall, do a recovery ritual. There's a whole list of different things you could do, but just consider, for the most part, just consider getting up and moving, and most of all, not touching this thing or your email inbox. And I'll close with it's a great quote from a guy named Tony Schwartz. He is the CEO of an organization called the Energy Project, and he wrote a. He's one of the few guys that's written a book on energy management versus time management. I'm a big fan of energy management, but he says a ritual. I'm reading from a quote here actually. A ritual consciously created is an expression of fierce intention, intention, and nothing less will do if you're truly determined to take back control of your life. Going here and getting on, so that is not intentional. It's almost unintentional. It's almost automatic. We want to be in intention at all times if we can. That's how we take back a feeling of control. And the way we stay, one of the ways we stay overwhelmed is we just keep being out of intention and doing things automatically because our brain is hungry for some dopamine. And the great thing about all three of these non-negotiable power rituals for productivity is that they are each relatively easy to do. Yes, it will take some effort to build consistently around any of them, but if you can just get enough consistency to be putting one or more of them into action, say 3 or 4 times a week, what's going to happen is you're going to start to see a little bit of a difference. And you're going to see a difference in the amount of stuff that you get done and also in your energy level. And when you start to observe that difference, that's when you're going to be like, all right, I'm in. I'm in. And then it becomes easier to do them. I don't do this because it's the right thing, because it's the quote unquote right thing. I do this because it makes me feel great when I get more shit done. It's just as simple as that. That's what it does. I do my morning ritual every morning because when I don't do it, I end up not working on the right stuff. I end up, halfway through the day going, oh my God, what have I just been doing with my morning? I don't want to live like that. And even with the worst kind of ADHD, and I'm a classic case, these little rituals can really help take back control.
That's awesome. And I will say one thing that I really like about all of the different rituals is that there is a very, like, you can make it as simple or complex as you need to. And that's something you can adjust on the day, right? Like that's, if you're just having a real low day and you're like, I don't have a lot, you can do in the morning, you can do just the setting your intention. You can do, make your rituals smaller.
Yeah. The important thing is to have these tools there for you. And you make a great point. Maybe you don't do the full blown, all three of the questions with your morning ritual. Maybe you just go, all right, what's going on today? Let me just set some alarms for before those things happen or whatever. Or maybe you don't do the full work session ritual. Maybe you just say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try to get some of this done, maybe with a little bit of whatever. But just knowing that these are tools that you can own pretty easily is going to help you every day of the week if you put them into work, put them into action on it.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of this with my listeners, Alan. It has been really fun to have you. Um,
My pleasure.
how can people get in touch with you if they want to find you out there on the internet?
The best place to find me is at addcrusher.com. This is my main site where we have the ADD Crusher program, but also you can learn more about me and you can be in touch with me there. There are a few really good freebies on the website too. We've got an ebook called 5 Things We're Doing Every Day That Make Our ADHD Worse. And trust me, folks, we're all doing them. We're all doing them, but we just want to try and do them less. So that's something. And there's also a little one pager I call my formula for focus. And these are 5 things that I do every day, some of which were touched on here, but 5 things I do every day that allow me to focus with or without meds. So go addcrusher.com, check them out, and feel free to send me a note. There's an email on the site you can find and send me a note. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for listening this week, and thank you so much, Alan, for being here.
Thanks again for having me, and thank you all for being here.